and it reads, being in Bethany at the house of Simon the leper, as he sat at the table, a woman came having an alabaster flask of very costly oil of spikenard. Then she broke the flask and poured it on his head. But there were some who were indignant among themselves and said, why was this fragrant oil wasted? For it might have been sold for more than 300 denarii and given to the poor. And they criticized her sharply. But Jesus said, let her alone. Why do you trouble her? She has done a good work for me. For you have the poor with you always, and whenever you wish, you may do them good. But me, you do not have always. She has done what she could. She has come beforehand to anoint my body anoint my body for burial. Assuredly, I say to you, wherever the gospel is preached in the whole world, what this woman has done will also be told as a memorial to her. This morning I want to preach to you using the subject, you can't beat God-given. You can't beat God-given. Our text puts us in Bethany, right before the Passover feast. And while in Bethany, a dinner is thrown in honor of Jesus at Simon's house. And at this dinner with Jesus is of course Simon, Mary, Martha, Lazarus, and the disciples. Martha is serving. Lazarus is among those sitting with Jesus at the table. And Mary comes out with a pint of very expensive nard oil and pours it over the head and feet of Jesus. When I read this text, especially the part about this act being a memorial unto her wherever the gospel is preached, I thought, what would have happened if she would have never opened the flask? If Mary would have never opened the box, she would not have known the effect of her action. This was a gift given to her from a very close relative. It was a very expensive gift, well over any common laborer's salary. However, she opened her gift and poured it unto the Lord. I wonder if there's anybody in here who knows that God has given you a gift. All right. A gift like no one else's. Yes, sir. A gift like no other kind. And he wants you to open your gift, use your gift for his glory, and watch what he does to and through you. Yeah. Remember, only you can make your dream come true. Yes, sir. If you want a closer relationship with Christ, if you want your family to have the best in life, it is up to you to make it happen. All right. Yet we must always remember that our greatest gifts and talents have absolutely no value at all if we choose to do nothing with them. All right, now. Despite what Mary's haters had to say, she kept pouring her everything upon Jesus because she knew her gift was useful. Not only did she see her gift as valuable and useful, she felt that Jesus was worth more than anything she had possessed. The text tells us that after the vase was opened, the smell filled the house. Everyone in the house smelled it. Some got agitated, some were indignant, but they still smelled it. Mary kept doing her, and she did not mind doing so because even though she had some haters, she smelled like Jesus. One thing I always say is one way to keep your hater mad is to keep seceding. Something about you doing your best makes your hater not little mad, but big mad. The laugh out loud is they were called indignant, while the world now knows that she surely smells like Jesus. When you know that you are pouring your all out unto the one who cleans you up, you're not going to worry about the naysayers or the haters, but you are going to keep pouring because you know who cleans you up. and now you smell just like him. Now the school is out, I decided to take my girls to one of my favorite childhood barbecue spots located in the south side of Indianapolis. And when we entered, I kept looking at Brianne, and she kept looking up, and she had this look up on her face. And if you know BB, she wears her emotions right there on her face. And I said, baby, what's wrong? She said, Daddy, I can't eat here. The fans are too dirty. The fans are too dirty. Church, there are people wanting to come into the house to eat. However, they are not able to eat because our fans are too dirty. Christ is not looking for a bunch of dirty fans. He's looking for a bunch of followers who do not mind being clean from the inside. And after he cleans you, it's your responsibility to tell the world about the one who can fix anyone, anywhere, anyhow. It's a good thing that Mary decided to give her everything to Christ because he meant everything to her. My students will encourage you not to do too much. When you're right at their line of comfort, they'll say, Mr. B, don't do too much. Sometimes we neglect to give God our foolish praise because we are afraid of what others may say. But I beg of you to please do too much. Give God all that you have. Let me ask you, what were you before Jesus came into your life? You don't have to answer that out loud. Just reflect upon who you were, what you were doing. Because Mary knew who she was and all that Jesus had done for her, she chose to give her greatest possession. The text tells us that as she was giving her best, some folk got indignant. Judas had something to say. Why are you doing that? You could sell this oil and give the money to the poor. As if Judas really cared about the poor. Judas was the bag holder and was used to stealing from whatever was placed into the bag. So Judas did chime in, but watch this. Jesus tells him to pipe it down. Jesus says, leave her alone. It was intended that she should save this perfume for the day of my burial. Mary, who was a sinner, simply wanted to give Jesus her best offering because of all that he did for her. However, Jesus knew that he would not receive a proper burial, so he made her simple offering into a great memorial. Yes, sir. Church, somebody will have something to say, but when we let Jesus do the quieting, our acts will be remembered for ages. Yes, sir. So I encourage you to keep pouring your all upon Jesus. Amen. During my studying of this scripture, I kept asking myself, Judas, how could you not be excited? How could you not be excited about grace and mercy? Here you are in Bethany, at Simon's house, sitting with Jesus. Yet you have something negative to say. We all have that one person who wants to tell us how we could have, should have, and what they would have. And Judith could have been right. She could have assisted in giving Jesus a joyful evening simply by being there. She could have poured the oil and been done. She could have blessed his head and blessed his feet and said, all right, that's enough. But let me tell you why Mary kept on giving. She kept giving because when she was in need, Jesus cheerfully gave unto her. See, her brother Lazarus had died. Then Jesus raised him. Now here Mary is looking at her brother sitting at the table, talking, laughing, and celebrating with the very man who raised him. Church, when the Lord gives unto us, there should be something inside of us that makes us want to give something back to him. Our time, our riches, our talent, give unto the Lord, for he is worthy to be praised. That's why I could not understand the attitude of Judas and had to ask myself, why is he noticing what she's doing in the first place? Judas should have been so busy celebrating that he didn't even notice what Mary was doing. I found in my years of being involved in the work of the church that we sometimes get so busy watching others worship that we neglect to give God our best praise. This is a dinner for Jesus, which means everyone should be celebrating who? Jesus. Yet we see that some people were busy spectating. Can I be real for a few seconds? Yes, sir. One thing that burns me up is to come into a church service and see a bunch of saved, healed, delivered by grace people watching others worship or waiting for someone to invite them to participate. You should have woke up this morning with your mind stayed on Jesus, shouting hallelujah, 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 because you owe God your best praise, and every minute of your life should be given unto him. So here Mary is worshiping the Lord with oil from her flask. Despite her haters and their opinions, she knows how great her Jesus is. So she kept giving her best. And as I prepare to leave you, I want to encourage you to keep pouring your all upon Jesus. Because here he is on his way to Jerusalem, where he will enter riding on a donkey, where he shall spend time preaching and reaching more diverse crowds. Jesus hung out with friends, even staying in the home of Lazarus, traveling across the Mount of Olives. Some would say Jesus had crowds near to him. But at the same time, he was all the ire, the wrath of those in authority, causing him to have his last meal, have a stressful prayer time in the Garden of Gethsemane, and even being betrayed and arrested. Jesus' journey to Jerusalem began with Mary pouring her all unto Jesus. And it ended with Jesus being sold for 30 pieces of silver by the disciple with the most to say about Mary not selling her gift for the sake of the poor. I guess because he could not sell Mary's relationship, he decided to sell his friendship. I know we did a lot of talking about gifts and using them to glorify God, even in the presence of those who don't want to see or hear us worshiping. Well, let me ask you this. Well, let me tell you why gifts are so important to give. See, it's Father's Day. I'm expecting a gift when I get home. But let me tell you why gifts are so important to give. There was a time when we were despicable to God. Yes, sir. He could not stand to look up on us or be around us, but he still loved us. Yes, he did. He knew we were flawed, sinful creatures, and that the penalty of sin is death, but he still loved us. So the gift of God is eternal life. And he will send Jesus to be born unto the Virgin Mother Mary, raised by a great man named Joseph. And while we were still sinners, right outside the city of Jerusalem, in a place called Golgotha, on a hill called Calvary, yes, Lord. Yes, Lord. Jesus died. Yes, he did. Yes, he did. He didn't have to do it, but he did. Yeah. He died for you and
for me. His hands were pierced to a cross. Feet were riveted. Yes. Meaning that the nails were driven through his feet into the cross. Oh, Lord. And if he could be beaten, bruised, and died for me, then I vow to pour my praise on him. Oh, like oil from Mary's alabaster box. Yeah. But don't be angry if I wash his feet with my tears. Yeah. And I dry them with my hair. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Because you weren't there the night that Jesus found me. You did not feel what I felt. Yes, sir. When he wrapped his loving arms around me. Well, church, you don't know the cost of the oil. Yes, sir. In my alabaster box. So don't be angry with me if I choose to wash his feet with my tears. And I choose to dry his feet with my hair. Because I say again, you weren't there the night Jesus found me. Did not feel what I felt when he wrapped his loving arms on me. He's been too good. He's given too much for me to sit there and act like I don't care. Is there anybody here who knows that he died for you and he died for me on Calvary? Stayed in the grave all night Friday. Stayed in the grave all day and night on Saturday. But only on Sunday morning he got up with all power. Is there anybody here who can get excited and shout, he got up, he got up, he got up, he got up, he got up. Yes, he did. With all power in his hands. Is there anybody glad? Are you glad about it? I'm real glad that he did it. And everything won't be perfect in your life now. Things might seem to even get a little bit harder. You're going to have some bad days. You're going to have trouble in your life. You're going to have to cry some nights. But remember that weeping may endure for a night. But joy cometh in the morning. Because somebody shout joy. Somebody shout joy. Unspeakable joy. Unmovable joy. The more I call Jesus, the better I feel. I've got to leave the church. I had a really good time. But before I go, let me ask you, is there anybody here who can shout with me? Lord, I thank you for making a way out of no way, for turning my can't stop praising. I can't stop. I won't stop. I won't stop praising. He's been too good. Yes, yes. And that's why I can come into this room and I can shout with confidence that when I come into his presence, I humble myself.